All right, good morning. Welcome to the Valuable Mind podcast. My name is Brandon Pony. I'm super excited this morning. Our guest this morning is Travis Janko. And Travis is from GSD Coaching and Recruiting. And super excited because his background comes from some humble beginnings for sure. His story is very interesting. I'm going to let him obviously tell it. But his rags to riches story is quite unique. So he's currently in Denver, Colorado right now, but his lightly to be mentioning, he started in sales literally from the bottom, gained salesman of the year, rookie of the year, went, and climbed the ladder really, really fast. He then learned recruiting and fixing a major problem in the recruiting space, which then developed systems. He worked very, very closely or in depth with Trulia, which transitioned obviously to Zillow with a healthy exit that he was a part of, and turned now to multiple seven-figure earner, an entrepreneur, business owner with his wife. Travis, super excited to have you.
Yeah, Brandon. Wow. Thanks, Brandon. I'm glad to be on the show.
I'm super glad to have you. It's going to be really, really cool. We're obviously
Yeah.
going to get some value out of it, and I'm really excited. So I want to turn it over to you. Catch us up, on your story, and obviously, what your business is doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long story, but the super short version, I was a sales leader for about 25 years. First sales job, I was a door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesperson. I was absolutely terrible. I was borrowing gas money just so I could go to the motivational meetings, and then walk in the Iowa heat all day, carrying around a 25-pound vacuum cleaner where people wouldn't buy from me.
Mm.
Figured it out. Became a sales leader of the same company, and I was terrible, and I figured it out. And then moving forward, my first startup was Trulia. There was 35 people. It was the Wild West. Literally, people running around in tank tops, bare feet, dogs running around, kegs, basketball hoops, ping pong tables, the startup world. Um, there was no specialization. Everybody did everything on the sales team. And you brought a new business, you managed a book of business, you took inbound leads, you made outbound calls, and that's not a formula for success. And so we really started working on specialization. The thing is, we had 35 of us in the building, and our goal was in the next 3 years to grow to about 250, 300 people, huge growth goals. And because of that, and this is how I told you this earlier, this is how I got into recruiting, how basically I had never done recruiting before. I always had a team to do it for me. And I got right out of training at Trulia. And I asked my boss who builds a deck for my team. And she started laughing. She said, "This is a startup. If you need a thing done, you're the person that does the thing." And that was my first like eye-opening moment. And that leads me to the recruiting part. I was spending 5 hours a day, every day, away from my team, interviewing candidates I did not want to hire every day. And I would go to the recruiting department and I would say, "This is what we need. Here's the profile." And then they would get me really cool people I might want to have a drink with, but not people I wanted to hire, but I had to because of our growth goals and my quota. So I had three choices, right? One was quit, one was just complain about it, and the other is just go fix it. So what I did is I spent 3 months teaching myself how to source candidates, how to be a recruiter. I learned from, I was on the other side. I had recruiters coming at me,
Mm.
and I had some great ones and some not so great ones, just like anything in life, right? And so I thought recruiting is an HR function, but it shouldn't be. It should be like sales. It should be like marketing. That's how we should look at recruiting. And so after 3 months, I figured it out. I would get up at 4 a.m. every single morning and I would source candidates until work. And then I'd go home, eat dinner, source candidates. And fast forward from our 35 people, 3 years later, we went through IPO. We grew to 600 people in our building. And I personally went and found about 250 of those. I bypassed the recruiting department. I knew who I needed. I went and found them. We grew, we exited for 3.5 billion. That was my first startup. I thought this is what startup life is like. Now, keep in mind, I'm not telling you all the pain that happened in between there, right? This is just, but that's the success. That's the win. And that's kind of what got me hooked on recruiting. And the next step of the story, quickly, Brandon, is I then started after another startup that we exited. I started going in and being a consultant. Nowadays, they would call it like a fractional VP of sales, where I would go in and help startups kind of build out their process, their playbooks, their functions. Um, And then when that was done, they would ask me if I could help them find salespeople, and I was doing it. And then I just had this aha moment out of nowhere. What I bet they would pay me to do that. So then I was doing both. And what happened was a friend of mine, Dan Martell, he wrote a great best-selling book called Buy Back Your Time. Um, if anybody here should read it, it's a must read. Um, he said, Travis, you need to niche your niche. And what he really meant by that was I was really good at doing this and really good at doing this, but I could be great at doing one thing. And so that's when the business changed. We turned into just sales recruiting, and that's what we do. As you mentioned, Brandon, it's just two of us. Angie, my wife, and I are running the business. It's a very process-driven business. We've we took the bruises and the pains and the bumps and did all the mistakes that we could make and turned it into a successful, thriving business with two people. And so that's kind of the story of how we got here.
Hmm.
Um, Long story. There's a lot more actually. If you see the books behind me, the first one is actually one that tells the entire story. So
Doubling down.
the other one.
Oh, yeah, you of all people.
Yep, that's
Love it.
the story from start to finish. But this is
Love
the
it.
short version. We only
No, it's
have so
so
much
cool.
time.
You're speaking to my heart for sure. Because yeah, I was in the door-to-door space, been for 11 years and recruiting for about 8 years, and I just and worked with family. Funny enough, worked with family, and definitely had some highs and some lows. Comes with challenges.
Yep.
Incredible story though. But to
Thanks.
just to back up just a touch. So yeah, sales to recruiting, hundreds of people interviewed probably thousands,
Hmm.
just to get the hundred, just to get the few hundred, just because of the numbers. What's been because you can hire anybody, you can just say yes, you can bring in anyone off the street. Everybody's always looking for a job. What is it that are some key highlights to finding the right people? Like, what is it that you're kind of doing different? What do you think?
Yeah. So what we do different is we help our clients first off figure out who it is they actually need. That's the big. First off, we help them figure out if they really need somebody. The second is who that perfect crystal ball candidate is, because a lot of people think I can just post a job ad and a rock star candidate's going to apply and I'll be good to go. And then 6 months later, they're regretting making that decision because they have to let them go. And now they have 6 months of lost pipeline. You get it. Everybody's been there. I was there. Totally understand it. A is who is that perfect crystal ball candidate? Like if I could find this person today, and it's not just somebody who's hit their numbers, that's crucial. You also want somebody from the type of company. If it's a founder-led SaaS organization with only 8 people in the company, you shouldn't go hire somebody from Salesforce. It's just, it doesn't work very well. It was kind of like my transition from coming to corporate to going to startup. It took a little bit to get comfortable and used to that. And if you're hiring salespeople, you don't have the time for them to ramp. So it's knowing who they are, going to find them. What makes us a lot unique and a lot different. We've never posted a job ad. We never will. We go find them. I have a
Hmm.
ocean to pond method where basically years ago, I took my 4,000 LinkedIn connections and dropped them down to about 500 because of all the people that were in there. There was only about 500 people where I could add value or they could add value. The rest were just noise. And I built a pond, got rid of the ocean, built a pond where there's 22,000 fish in there that I want to go fish for. And those are just my perfect client and my perfect candidate. So I know where they're at already, know what sandbox they're playing in. Um, so when we go find the candidate, what makes us unique is that I actually screen the candidates or Angie does. If it's for a marketing or a development role, she does that. If it's for sales, I do it. We don't use a junior recruiter. We're doing it ourselves, and we have processes and systems that we've built and trademarked to go through how we're really vetting out a candidate to make sure that they're the perfect fit for the role. Because you know as well as I do, Brandon, some candidates can interview like nothing else, but then they don't perform. And so we have the ways of vetting that out. Once we've actually found the right candidates, we don't just send a resume. We actually have this candidate profile, which I would call like a cover letter on steroids. It's literally going to tell you everything you need to know about them and the deep things that I uncovered to say this is why you should speak with them. And we don't just ask the question once. I ask multiple questions in multiple ways to see if I'm getting the same story. Um, I'm really the
Mm.
face talking to the candidates and the clients. Angie is making sure everything's happening in the background. And so, we have two people doing two different jobs. I'm doing the things that I love and that I'm great at, and she's doing the things that she loves and she's great at. And some of those don't overlap, and some of them do. So hope that helps.
It's so super valuable. Yes. And yes, and I've been there lightly. Yes. When it lands and you find the right person and it's the right match and the right candidate, it's so satisfying. But if it's the wrong one and the wrong one comes through, it's
It
yeah,
hurts.
it hurts so bad. It's that,
Yes.
it's who you didn't hire, almost. It goes
Yep.
both ways. So yeah, that's
It
exactly right.
Oh, it does. It does for sure. It's the lost production, the lost sales. Oftentimes you hire a wrong fit and it also can destroy your team. So it's just that
Quickly.
finding the right person. My mentality is every time I'm talking to a candidate, I'm thinking if I worked for my client and I had to hit my quota, would I hit my quota if I hired this person? If the answer is no, my client doesn't know they exist because I'm not
Hmm.
moving them forward.
Hmm. Yeah, I could totally relate with this. When I was, was still looking through, looking through resumes, it's age would be something like, oh, well, he's seasoned, he's been around, he's got to know some things. And it's been where I've been completely wrong, or it's been the wrong, assumption. And then I hire someone that's 24 and they were the right fit. Even though they didn't have an extensive background or extensive training and history, they were the ones that had like the pure intentions, the pure heart, the go-getters, train, coachable, teachable. I see that often, especially too. One of my things is if I see multiple, like 8 to 10, they've been at such and such company, just amazing lifelong list of resumes and companies that they've been with, and it's like 1 year here, 2 years here, 1 here, one. But I see a bunch of them in like a short amount of time. It's often sometimes a red flag. Why did you
Yeah.
move around so much? Instead of almost committing, or like what was it that made you change? And every time
Yeah.
we dive in, a lot of times it's just money driven. Like that's it. And
It
there's nothing else.
Well, and oftentimes what we'll learn when somebody leaves a role, we'll either learn that they own it, something happened and they own it, or nothing is ever their fault. It's always somebody else's problem. And again, we don't want to have somebody else's problem go to some other place. Um, I would say another thing that we do that's pretty unique is I get the numbers out of the candidates. I get their real numbers. So A players, they know their numbers, they know their data, they know their quotas, they know their average dollar sale, they can tell you everything. B, C players don't know them or they make them up. And so there's a three-step process. I'll go through it really quick. Early on, I ask, what was your quota? Everybody asks that anyway. But what most people do is they don't do the next thing. The next thing is I move away from it for 10 minutes and we talk about other things. And then I circle back around and I say, what percentage to quota did you hit last year? And then we talk about other things for 20 minutes. And then I say, oh, I forgot to ask, how much did you sell last year? If you ask these back to back, Brandon, they can gamify the system. If you don't, they're not paying attention to what's going on. And you're going to find out really quickly. And it's not just what they say, but it's not just the answer they give, but how they answer. An A player is going to go, this is it, boom, 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 boom. Matter of fact, here's my CRM. And the people who aren't superstars are going to stumble a little bit and they're going to fumble on that. Then step 4 is a little bit later. I'm going to say, hey, out of curiosity, what is your average dollar sale? What is your average sales cycle? And how many deals do you close per quarter? I'm doing the math as they're talking to me and I'm seeing, does that jive with what they just told me? And if it doesn't, I'm going to call them out. I'm going to put the calculator up on the screen and I'm going to say, explain this to me.
Because the math doesn't math.
If the math doesn't math, something's wrong, right? And your your best of the best know their stuff. Like they know it inside and out.
Yes.
And when a candidate tells me, well, we never tracked that, there are companies that don't track it, but your best salespeople track their own numbers. Like they
Hmm.
know what they're doing. You can't build a scalable, repeatable process if you don't know the data.
You got if you want to grow it, you got to know it. Yep.
Yep. Love that.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah.
So now speak about trends. You've seen a lot of shifts. You've been in this, multiple decades. Um, we've seen 2008. We've seen COVID. We've seen, the virtual, like we've just seen this some massive trends. Kind of speak to that. What you've seen. What are some of the trends you've been, kind of seeing?
Yeah, I would say, going to COVID, it was quite interesting because for a bit there, the world shut down, as we all remember, and nobody was hiring. And then the companies figured out we're either not COVID friendly or we are. Companies like Zoom, for instance, suddenly, and I know I'm in Denver. I know a lot of folks that I used to work with that I had hired at another company, startup I worked for, that were at Zoom and they were there at the right time and they started crushing it. And companies like that hired and hired and hired and hired so many people and they overhired. And then suddenly the market shifted again and there was so much competition and suddenly people had to start laying off. Right. And so it's that never ending trend. And now the investors, the VCs, where people are used to getting money from them, are being a lot more tight on that money. People are having to let people go again. And now you have AI. And AI is a really great and a really bad thing in recruiting. And where it's a bad thing is we're seeing it right now. Everybody who's watching this, and you and I already have our inboxes filled up with junk from AI because somebody didn't program it properly. Somebody didn't ask it the right questions, have it ask them the right questions to build out the cadence, right? But AI is also doing interviews now. So think about this. You're a top 5% salesperson. You're getting hounded all the time by recruiters. You're tired of it. We've both been there. Everybody listening has been there. And now you finally get a company you're interested in talking to, and the first interview is with AI. It might be a great interview, but you can't ask AI the uncomfortable, hard things that you want to ask the CEO or the head of HR. You can't, they're not going to be able to answer those things and it's not personal. So,
Hmm.
can you use AI to do those things? Absolutely. As a first step, terrible. Where it comes in recruiting is I would say I'm probably saved over 2 hours a day just by using AI to help things such as we're in a meeting. Once the meeting's done, AI sends my meeting notes over. I then drop it in another one. It puts them all where I need to. All the things that used to take so much time, I can build a job description now in 5 minutes instead of 3 hours
Exactly.
because I've trained it it knows what I want to do. I think that's a big trend. The other thing, which is interesting, is it used to be inside salespeople who were mostly like small business, medium business salespeople would go into an office, and that was just how life was. Your enterprise salespeople didn't go into an office because they were out hitting the pavement. And then suddenly nobody was in office. And now the trend is going back. Well, we need people back in the office again. And salespeople are leaving. So I'm literally just going after companies where I know they've changed the mandatory back to going in the office because I'm going to find their top salespeople and say, I have a remote role over here for you. Um, but that's starting to change where the hybrid or the in office and the hybrid, by the way, isn't always true. Hybrid means, yeah, you can have like Saturday and Sunday off out of the office. So you have to be really careful. Another trend I'm seeing is it's not a trend, it's never changed. People still aren't putting compensation and benefits on the job description.
Mm.
Like, or you'll see something like 30,000 to 300,000. Um, Honesty is a really good way to go. If your salary is below market value, you should tell people. If it's at market, you should tell them. If it's above, you should tell them because you want to attract the right people. And there's no need to get all the way. Like, I literally talked to a candidate the other day who went through 4 steps, got to offer, and they were $20,000 away because nobody in the whole process talked about comp. I don't know how that would have happened. Um, but I'm still seeing people either put unrealistic comps or they're not putting them. Another trend is, especially in the SaaS space, there's a formula for building out compensation models in the SaaS space. It's very simple.
Hmm.
You take your salary times two should be your on target. So let's just say your salary is 100 grand. So if you hit your target, you make 200 grand, and then you multiply that by 5 to get their quota, which would be a million. Super simple. It's been around for years. The problem is people are still using that and just assuming that that's true without doing the data and the math to see if the numbers actually work. They're just using a formula. And again, you have to math the math, as you said. You have to know that the numbers are actually true. If you bring a candidate on and you tell them that this is what we're expecting you to do, but it's not based off of true data, bad things are probably going to happen. You're either going to way underpay them and they're going to quit, or you're going to way overpay them, and then you're going to have to right size that, and then they're going to quit. So
Exactly. It's
those are
such
just
a
some of the trends. There's
love it.
so many
Yeah.
more.
You've seen them. Yeah. They're happening for real. Yeah. That's so true. That's such a fine line. Yeah. What you were just saying. Exactly right. So now you've obviously we went through, your successes. It's super cool to see scaling and building your own, successful business, GSD coaching and, recruiting with your wife didn't come without challenges. What are some of the challenges that your business is facing right now?
Yeah, some of the challenges I think that we're facing today. I mean, we've faced many. We figured out how to overcome a lot of hurdles along the way, but I would say today is, that old adage, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That's not true. It's bad, terrible advice, by the way, especially in today's world. But we have, knock on wood, for the entire time we've been in business, we have relied on just a few ways of getting leads. We haven't done outbound. In other words, there isn't any client of ours that we picked up the phone and cold called them or cold emailed them. Not that I'm saying that's the way to go. I'm just saying that's not how we've done it. We've worked our business off of partnerships, referral partnerships. So let's say we do sales recruiting. So let's say that there's two SaaS companies between 1 and 10 million ARR. So let's say that I know of a fractional VP where they work with those same clients and they come in and they build out their processes and their playbooks. I'm going to partner with them so we can refer clients back and forth because it's helping our clients because now they have more resources. We trust who we're giving them to. We call it the GSD Trusted Partner Alliance. And we've worked this a long time. It works really, really well. We also have done well with just a couple of trade shows that we specifically go to. We've done well on our speaking engagements. We've done well with our books. Those are all lead magnets. The thing is, we need to do more because more people are doing more and AI is doing more. And so the challenge is, it hasn't hit us yet, but I know that it will, is that eventually, if we don't add more, our leads will go down. It's going to happen because somebody's going to figure out master AI and they're going to start driving leads and all these things. And so what we've done is one immediate thing is we just built a YouTube channel. Not sure why we haven't had one yet. We have our first 4 sessions just about ready to go live. Angie and I do a lot of training, a lot of lunch and learns. We're just on our website. Everybody listening, go check out our all of our resources, our blogs. We have over 100 blogs in there, and it's literally, this is the stuff we teach our clients. But we're going to start doing that to add some more value. I think that's going to help. We're revamping our website. It looks cool, as you mentioned. I built it myself. I'm not a web designer. If somebody gets there, it's because they heard about me first and they go there and they say, cool website. But if they're looking for somebody that does what I do and they don't know me, they won't find me. So we're getting that revamped. And the next thing in next quarter, we're diving into what you're doing. We're starting up our own podcast as well. So that's some things we're doing to overcome some of the challenges that we see.
Love it. Love it. making all the right steps, and it goes back to, like, some of your principles, and I think it's your core values of authentic. I think you've been authentic in sales, that you've been authentic in recruiting and finding the authentic, obviously when you do that, and you obviously, you and your business, they seem to be just not wanting to cut any corners, to do things the right way, not do things because just to do them. Uh,
No, follow a process always. Do the the big thing is, and I'll do this super short. Several years ago, we had a huge aha moment where Brandon, we things were getting tough. I was overworked. Anybody that's been in leadership, has owned their own business, who's been in recruiting understands this. I was working too many hours. I was stressed. I was doing too many things. Um, and the business was struggling. I was taking on clients I shouldn't take on. All of the things. We had a one whole day whiteboard session. And what I did before that session for 2 weeks, I wrote down everything that I do, everything, like literally everything, because I was so busy that I couldn't keep up. So I must be doing a lot of important things, was the assumption. We wrote all those things down on the whiteboard. We broke them into three categories: mission critical. If this doesn't happen, the business fails. The next one is important, needs done, not today. And the third was big waste of time, delete. And about 25% of what I was doing was a big waste of time, delete. So we eliminated those. Then we took all of the duties and we put into what do I love and what am I great at and what do I not love and what am I not great at. And this was when Angie was, although we founded it together, she was still leading teams in corporate and she was helping in the back end as well. And we broke down all the things that I should be doing and the things I shouldn't be doing and that she should and she shouldn't. And this is where she came on full time. She took these things, I took these things. And then we iterate twice a year. We go back through and make sure, is that right? The final thing the thing that the silver bullet for everybody on this is the shiny object syndrome. And what happens is something really cool comes along. You see a podcast, you talk to somebody, you read a book, whatever that is, and you think, if I drop everything I'm doing and go do this thing, we will get better. And actually, usually we get worse when we do that. So we table those and we only discuss those things twice a year. And it's funny, about 80% of them are not even relevant by the time we discuss them. So I'm telling everybody here, don't chase this freaking shiny object if you can
so
help
valuable,
yourself.
so valuable, so true. And not just to do it once, but yeah, multiple times a year. Things change. That's
They do.
so valuable. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Well, Travis, I know you have a full day. This was more than valuable. Thank you for spending the time with me this morning. This is awesome. Again, Travis Janko and him and his wife, they own and they started and run GSD Coaching and Recruiting. You can visit their website. You can see him and his wife right there. It's awesome. Thanks again for your time. This is the Valuable Mind podcast. See you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.